In a previous lesson, we moved from looking at questions with only one blank to those with two blanks. In this lesson, we will expand even further and look at questions with three blanks. The general strategy for questions with three blanks is virtually the same as that for questions with two blanks. Read the entire passage to understand the big picture. As you read, look for contextual words and phrases with an emphasis on descriptive and relationship words. Make your predictions, and then consider which blank to answer first. And as with questions with two blanks, we must fill in every blank correctly to get credit. Now there are some extra considerations when it comes to three blank questions, so let's set things up by having you try this question. I suggest that you pause the video to try and answer the question before continuing. Okay. This passage is about how parents reacted to learning that some songs had backwards messages in them. Now the first sentence doesn't have a lot to offer with regard to contextual clues. We see that the parents became unnerved by a rumor, but this does not help us predict the word for the first blank. There are many different kinds of messages that might unnerve parents, so it would be very hard to predict the correct word here based solely on the first sentence. The second sentence describes the messages as potentially harmful, so we might be inclined to predict a word like harmful for the first blank, but this in fact creates an illogical passage. The resulting passage would begin by saying that harmful messages could be heard on records, and the second sentence would then go on to state that these messages were said to be potentially harmful. It makes no sense to first claim that the messages are harmful and then suggest that the messages were said to be potentially harmful. Given this, the word harmful is not a good prediction. When we keep reading, we see that the strongest contextual clue for the missing word is all the way down here, where we're told that this passage is all about concealed messages. Given this, let's predict concealed for the first blank. Now for the second blank, we're looking for a word that describes parents' position on allowing their children to buy records. Well, the messages are described as potentially harmful, and more importantly, we're also told that the parents were unnerved. So let's use a word similar to unnerved. How about scared? Finally, the third blank describes certain lyrics. The sentence is set up by saying that the rumor wasn't limited to music with vulgar lyrics and sounds. The phrase "wasn't limited to" sets up a nice contrast between vulgar lyrics and other kinds of lyrics. We're looking for a word that means the opposite of vulgar. So let's make polite our prediction. At this point, we can begin checking answer choices, and we can do so in whatever order we choose. However, since we successfully predicted words for all the blanks, we can just start with the first blank and work through this question from beginning to end. For the first blank, we have subliminal, which means concealed. This is perfect and is likely correct, but let's check the other answers nevertheless. Gratuitous means extra, and zealous means enthusiastic. These are not supported in context, so answer choice A is correct. Now on to the second blank. Apprehensive means scared, so this is a nice match. Meticulous means detailed, and abrasive means rude. Neither of those answers is supported by context, so answer choice D is correct. Now the third blank. Ominous means threatening, so this pretty much is the opposite of what we're looking for. Eliminated. Eccentric means unusual, and this is not a match for our prediction. Finally, benign means mild or harmless. Although not a perfect fit for our prediction, it does have the opposite meaning of vulgar or harmful that we're looking for, so we'll take it. As you can see, the correct answers are A, D, and I. We just saw how sometimes the key contextual word for a certain blank can appear several sentences away, so don't just look for contextual clues in the same vicinity as the blank. Okay, here's another question to try. This passage is about the musical abilities of Billy Strayhorn. As we read the passage, several descriptive words pop out. We have celebrated contemporaries and jazz great in the first sentence. We also have a song described as more impressive in the second sentence, and we have a composition that was composed early in life and described as mature in the last sentence. Now the first blank requires a word describing Billy Strayhorn. We're told that Billy is less something than his more celebrated contemporaries. This suggests that Billy was less celebrated than contemporaries. So let's reuse this word and predict celebrated. Now the second blank is tougher. The missing word describes Billy's compositions. Here we see that the second word could easily be described by the word celebrated from the first sentence or impressive from the second sentence. No problem. Let's use both words as predictions, even though only one will have a good match among the answers. Now on to the third blank. Here we see that because a certain Strayhorn composition was composed early in life, one might expect a certain sound. This is followed by the relationship word but, and some more words telling us that the piece is actually mature. The relationship word but here tells us that we're looking for a word that works against the word mature. So let's predict immature. Now on to the answer choices. Since we aren't 100% certain about the second blank, let's examine this first, just in case the correct answer here has an effect on our other predictions. First, onerous means burdensome, so it doesn't fit either prediction. Multifaceted might be a good trap answer for musicians and jazz fans, since jazz certainly does incorporate a lot of elements, but this answer is not supported anywhere. Now sensational is a great match for our prediction impressive, so F is the correct answer. As you can see, there was no answer that was a fit for celebrated. You will never have to choose between two supported answers. At this point, let's check the answer choices for the first blank. First, renowned and celebrated are good matches for each other, so this looks like a good candidate. Nevertheless, we'll check all the answers. Credulous means gullible, and amiable means friendly. There are no descriptions to support either of those choices, so answer choice A is correct. Now on to the third blank. Sophomoric is a good match with our prediction. Prosaic means dull, and furtive means secretive. These words are not supported by the passage, so eliminate them. The correct answers are A, F, and G. One final word of advice for 3 blank questions. With these longer passages, you should put the answers you choose back in context and read it through fully once just to make sure everything makes sense. You may even want to do this after you've moved on and worked on another question or two so that you can look at this question in a fresh light. Our final sentence reads, while less renowned than some of the more celebrated contemporaries, jazz great Billy Strayhorn composed pieces that were no less sensational than those of Duke Ellington or Charlie Parker. One piece in particular, Lush Life, is all the more impressive in that Strayhorn composed it before he was 21 years old. One might expect a piece composed at so early an age to have a sophomoric sound, but in fact it is quite mature. We've definitely chosen the answers right. Okay, let's summarize. For 3 blank questions, we'll read the whole passage, identify descriptive phrases and relationship words, make predictions, and consider which blank to answer first. Sometimes a blank may be supported by more than one description, but there will only be one clear answer. With long and winding sentences, we may need to use some grammar knowledge to break the sentence down and take away supplemental clauses so that we can accurately use descriptive phrases and relationship words. Finally, we should put all of our answers into context and reread the sentence one final time to make certain we have the correct answers, though we may want to take that step after we've had the chance to work on a different question or two to clear our minds. In our next lesson, we'll have a look at an approach for questions that don't have descriptive phrases.